how we can use our pre-service teachers to do more supportive work while they're in their first year in the school. So, you know, without having the teachers have yet again another workload to prepare the people who would be tutoring in addition to their own students. But thinking that, you know, if we work together with, say, like her math people, how could some math people working with a math instructor actually develop some skills so that they could come in and relieve some of the pressure in the classroom to do whatever it is, to work one-on-one or that kind of thing. And I think in Flex that might be useful. Just talking to David today about how, I forget who it was, about the number of bodies. Like how useful it is to have another body in the room just to talk to individual students when you can't do it all yourself, trying to support them in this personalized learning. But, you know, otherwise you have lineups of kids waiting to talk to one person. So how might that be supported, I think, was what she was getting at. We also were talking about, and I think lots of people are working on different assessment strategies and how to do it differently than just report cards and reporting practices. So there's lots of different things going on in this school in different ways in trying to do that kind of work. So the work that you've been doing for years in relation to, you know, I call it calibration, but I don't know how you call it, like just connecting with each other and making sure that you're on the same page and developing those rubrics that make sense to you. And doing some form of contract grading, which I don't know what you call it, but that you know, students involved in their own practice and doing the badges and that kind of thing. So those are all really new kinds of things. Any portfolio that you've been looking at, and what could that do? And then I just briefly talked with Heather Brown before we left, and I don't know if it came up, but just about how do we support English language learners, because that really shifts our pedagogy if they're going to be in all our classes all the time, and that's not going to go away. So then what does that look like for teachers, and how could pre-service teachers maybe support them as they're learning a language to be able to engage in ideas? So were there other things that you can remember that capture it?
Yeah, I think that seemed to be the real kernels that people were really buzzing about. Like, I think that the only thing I would add is that I remember Sanjay was really talking about how with the possibility of next year having pre-service students who have undergrad degrees in different areas, like some science people, some math people, some English people, and maybe them all being in the same class and all part of the same TrueBit cohort, that there's probably a need for a little pot of students to be supporting, particularly in grade 9, I think she was talking about. You know, there might be some real needs in grade 9, so maybe that group of math, people who have math undergrad degrees can help support and work with Sanjay, kind of have a mentor teacher, and then there's science helping with grade 9 science. She was talking some specifics around that.
So I think the point of it is, like, we've got some money, and the purpose of it is to, and it started with, there's going to be new curriculum, and so that's why I just kind of printed out what there is right now up to grade 9. So this is grade 9 in 4 core areas. So these big ideas, this is what we're talking about, and it seems to be coming, right? That's going to be what we're working with. So how could that, using that, support whatever it is you're already doing in your practices, and use that as a jumping off point, and capture these stories so that we can actually tell other people that these are things that are happening in one particular school. And we're focusing on high school because I think in a lot of ways it's the most difficult to address any of those things. So there's lots of elementary schools that are trying different reporting practices and doing all kinds of, you know, peer assessment and those kinds of things, but at secondaries where it really becomes challenging because there's a lot of other pressures as well.
I think there's stories to be told around, like, what does it look like as teachers work together to try to bring some of this new curriculum stuff to life? What could that look like? What does that look like at secondary? Being able to share some of that experience and some of that unfolding story as you try, I think is really important.
Heather?
I did read the minutes. I just wanted to say 2 things just in feedback for that. We already are using some some of our senior flex students in that same capacity, and I see it as being really successful. So that model of bringing in, pre-service teachers that have that experience, and it's a win-win because they get to engage with students, they get to see a certain learning environment, so it demystifies the whole teacher experience a bit for them, so I see that being really positive. Just a couple of other little things that came up for me. One, a very simple one, is support without trips. So David and Greg Elliott came with me on a field trip up to Mount Doug. You have to have a certain number of people with you. They don't cost anything yet in terms of TOC release time. David is coming with me, and to Saturna Island for an overnight trip. So, and a field trip to Camp Thunderbird. So, and it's costing less for students because I don't have to try and pull other teachers and get TOC time for them.
Right.
So that's a big support, and it's also value added. David was telling his stories along the field trip and just having other experienced adults that have life experience to share. So that was really valuable, and again, I think it's a win-win, I think, for those student teachers to be able to see how you plan and organize an out trip and all the paperwork you have to go through, just all those kind of details, and how you manage a group of students in a different space. So that's one thing. The other thing was sharing passions. Might not even be their teaching area. So Greg Elliott, for example, had a passion with ethnobiology. And so he came in and we sat down, we basically created a mini unit.
The building are reminded to their attendance, please. So your attendance reminder. Thanks. Go ahead.
Over 2 weeks, where he took his passion for ethnobiology and fit it into the Science 10 curriculum and a First Nations piece of the Social Studies 10 curriculum. Again, just 2 weeks, mini little taste before you even jump into a practicum. And so the feedback I got from him was he really valued that mini experience and, getting a bit of feedback that wasn't any kind of a formal report. And we certainly valued from, his passion and what he was able to bring that otherwise wouldn't have been part of the course that day.
Hey, how was Chinatown?
It was really fun.
Yeah, excellent, yeah. So that's the important piece, is how useful is it for you folks? Because what we don't want to do in any way, shape, or form is add more to your already really busy schedule. So, what does partnership actually look like?
So this starts to sound a little bit like an internship in a way, because if we could place small groups of students at a school, it's so much more nimble than a big group or a small group for just an intense period of time.
Yeah, I'm seeing this kind of, I don't know how or where or when, but like in addition to TrueBit. Like I don't know if we're looking, or I don't think we're looking at doing that, but building on, I think I was talking to Kristen about it, but building on Heather's idea and Sanjay's idea that these small groups are coming in, but I think it's important that we match them with where they're passionate or where they want to develop, as opposed to the ELL was one of the discussions. It's like, oh yeah, let's come in and do that. But if we have all those students at the pre-service teachers only doing ELL, there's not going to be, right? So if there's somebody like a Greg and a David who would fit very well in an outdoor ed piece, then matching that person, and I think that it's important that we, to the matching piece, I know, exactly. So, but within that small group, for that period of time, whatever that might look like, or we just maybe in September say, start this group, it's like, Heather has this idea, and she may not draw them every Monday, but she's like, actually, this is coming up in 2 months. I want you guys I need your support for this and this. Do you want to plan something? And make it more, I don't want to say
Or you could go the opposite direction. If they were to make little profiles of themselves, like David saying that he was a farmer, what life experience do you have? What are your passions? Even if I was to see that, I would be able to take a look at my curriculum and say, that could fit in here and be, a different way of teaching this curriculum in a much more meaningful way. That would be helpful just to match up, but they shouldn't put their name on a profile unless they really want to be
Step up.
part of that. And I mean, for me, I haven't taken on a student teacher for a long time. I find it a bit challenging in Flex to do that, and when other teachers take on student teachers in Flex, if we all take them on, there's a bit of a parental fallout. For me, I would be much more excited about taking them on for small chunks, so they're working with me, coming in and doing a small chunk rather than doing an entire term or semester and, you know, that to me would be an exciting time to work together with someone and share things together and learn together in a different learning environment.
Well, and the challenge though is, because what I'm envisioning, hey,
Hey, Mark.
That's you. Have a day. How are you? Sorry to interrupt.
let's say short practice. Come on.
Great. One of those days.
He had some in there as well. Evan would be all over
It's a
that.
good one though. Hi.
Co-teaching mentorship, so practice and then their own.
And have a little email here too, once you're done.
I had to see that.
So,
He said the problem is.
no, yes, you always had a COVID. No, and I think that
Some
what
things
we're
never
seeing, what we're seeing in Flex this year, with David and Evan is that it's much more of a co-teaching, like, it's not, we're just handing it over kind of situation. We're all down there, we're still, it's not like I'm going to have coffee, although David, I'm sure, felt like that a few times. But it's a co-teaching model, which is what I think that you're getting at, and I just whispering to Carrie so I didn't forget, that's the short practicum, the first practicum might be remodeled in that way, and do it in a really a co-constructed way, as opposed to, all right, here's your observation, now you do it for a little bit of time.
For 5 days.
Right, or even
All
for,
it is in
in
bachelor's
BA,
education.
Yeah.
right, like, so, but that 5 week,
Yeah, it's 5 days. It's crazy.
right, so yours has to be longer period.
Yeah, well, it's 5-day observation, 5-day teaching.
Oh,
Two week practice.
In the
Well,
VA.
In the
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's gotta change anyway, I, in my
So
opinion.
you're 4, you're 5, you're 4.
So,
Well, and I think there's room
But,
to do, try out some of these.
well, and that's what I'm wondering is, now the problem I was gonna say is that 5-week practicum falls in a very specific time, so it has to fit with where you're at. That, the person with the passion and skill has to fit at the perfect time within the curriculum for about 5 weeks to make that work. So I'm wondering the nimbleness of different times. Sorry, Mark.
Not at all. We've been doing that with the IGS student teachers. It's absolutely a teaching team
Yeah.
the whole time. So whereas we will teach subjects, you know, whatever the lesson happens to be, and we'll play off of each other, just like we would if we didn't have the student teachers there. And that seems to work well, because then you're kind of responsible for less, but we're also, you know, we've got 52 kids most of the time. But I feel like that's kind of we've been working with a false model.
We've been working with a false
Well,
model.
and the
Right.
idea of somebody
Right.
coming in, watching a veteran teacher teach, and then here you go, and
You're ready. Well, I think
by all appearances, we're off to have coffee.
Carrie and I have talked for a while, and other people, about this clinical supervision model that really
Yeah.
is a 70s model, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, so if there are things that can be useful, to change that up, I think now's a good time to start thinking about trying out different stuff in
And
different ways.
Ironically, well,
We just can't
actually,
change our
it's irony.
program nimbly.
Well, yeah. Alana Charlton sent me an email saying, I think what I would really prefer is to work in an innovative capacity with a small cohort and look at modeling current and progressive educational practice and dovetailing with the goals of the BC Ed plan. UVic and SD 61, and I'm sure she meant 63 as well, could be an innovation zone for such an idea.
Or
So
envision
there's somebody
partnership.
else
That's,
who.
yeah, that's what we're doing,
Yeah,
yeah.
Well, and just
so
even
just
the,
someone else with a lot of experience and some time perhaps.
yeah. Even the whole observational model for 5 days rubs me the wrong way. You know, just
Where you
sometimes you get really fast notice someone what are they gaining by standing on the outskirts of your class watching? I always catch them ahead of time and say, you're 100% welcome in my room, But you cannot stand together, you have to sit with the kids, you have to talk with them and engage with them. Just sitting and observing and taking notes.
What are you writing?
It seems contrived. It doesn't seem like you're there to be part of it and learn from it. It seems like you're there because you have an assigned task to do.
Because it is contrived.
Yeah. And I think it's a pretty easy shift to take it away from a assigned task to something that might be meaningful, that they might get more out of, that can inform where they're going to head to and what they're going to be involved in.
Yeah. And that comes back to that group and that what Tim and Sanjay were talking about is mirroring kind of the methods course to that specific group of kids that they are working for, and now that relevancy is that they're actually contributing to a specific group of kids. And so through the Trubic model, it might be that a small group is working with a very specific teacher every time they're here for one block, and then they're observing or interacting or whatever, like hopefully experiencing might be a better way of saying it, other classrooms and other teaching styles and subjects. But they're in that one class every time with that same group from day one, and then they can be connecting their methods courses, because I think that's an important piece that when they go back, and I think that's missing. That, yeah, I think Evan would say is like, we're just learning this in absent,
What's the context? There's no context,
of
Well,
real-
and that's where we've been trying to create a context,
Yeah.
so that people actually understand what does go on in the classroom without, having it totally separate from, it's very easy for me to give a lecture on English practices and forget a lot about, what 15-year-olds are like, unless we're doing this work together. So that's, that's something that could be done without even any money. I'm trying to spend some money here, folks.
Can I look for some clarification? I just, in my own mind, I'm trying to get this right. Yeah.
I can help
Put
you
your
spend
hand
money.
down.
We're talking about pre-service teachers, are we talking about year 4, year 5 teachers? Or we don't know, or we're talking about both?
There's a difference because, like, from my perspective, I was in the education program since second year.
Yeah.
And they're the PDP
But
are
no,
after 4 years, right?
None of the others are, so it's
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
PE and a few art.
You
So
say that.
everybody else, it's their,
So
Year
what's
one
the,
and
what's
one
the
and a
point
half.
of entry for the pre-service teachers that we're talking about? Is this year 5?
Year 5 or year 2, it sounds like there's a group coming in at year 2 and a group coming in year 5.
But we don't get
I'm
into the
with you.
school until year 4.
But you should be in the school in year 2.
We should, that's what I believe.
Yeah.
In some capacity, not teaching.
No.
Definitely not teaching, but
No.
observing that this tutoring intern model.
so most of the
Mentoring
ones you
teachers.
work with, they
Yeah.
come in to a 16-month program.
there it
and
is.
then
I
you
get
have
that.
them at the beginning.
I'm totally,
That's right.
I just want to know, who are we talking about here? Are we talking about the same people?
Whoever, yeah, I mean, mostly not
Mostly not.
Mostly not,
the 5-year DED people.
right, but other than that, like the True Vickers, for example,
But yeah.
those are the,
Yeah,
It could be the 5-year B.Ed people.
could
It
be.
should.
Well, Evan's just saying, you
Yeah.
should start getting them in year 2.
Yeah.
well, we would, but we don't have the power to change.
Who has
this
that power?
program.
That's a
Very
question
so.
I've asked a
What
lot
about if you
recently.
just put up a poster and said, are you interested in doing this in year 2? Can't they make a choice? Can't you make a choice as a student at university that says, this is an opportunity for me to get into
If the
classrooms
schools,
early, I'm going to
if the
take
schools
it?
say yes and then you're willing to put in that time, I think a lot of students would, if it comes from at least one person at the university.
Well, Sarah
There has to have a-
Alberts
there has to be a little bit of a link.
been
Right, so we need to make
visited
a
us
link.
every Wednesday since Trubeck. It's not registered with anybody. Sarah Alpert.
But their schedule's been structured this year to have Wednesdays open to do it. And
I
don't
get
know
that, but
year
is it in
2
official capacity?
No, but year 2 might be, I don't know if there won't be a specific, I guess you would have to, I think the poster's a good idea, you just have to
It's bad.
connect.
You
But
need
go,
to
you
make
wanna
one.
spend money, yeah, go on.
You need
I wanna
say
spend
this
money.
program sucks.
I also wanna stop listening to the people that don't know what they're talking about, tell me that I can or cannot do something. So that's why I keep coming back to this thing where, like, it's so who says that we can't do that?
Do what?
Have people in second year get involved in teaching because they know they wanna be great teachers. Is that the Minister of Advanced Placement? Is that University
That's
Pencil Pushers?
University faculty and
So
education.
let's put them in a room and tell them to get their shit together.
Give me $50,000.
I'm not trying to be provocative, particularly with people who are just in the middle of that system, but like, we've gone around and round, we've had beer, we've had scotch, we've met in different places, we've had different conversations, and here we are still talking about somebody letting us do something when we know that this is the leading edge program that we should be preparing teachers in so our kids can learn well.
So then it's a programmatic change, because the coursework right now is what takes up their time in second and third and fourth year and so on. And even now with the Sarah Alpert group, right?
Yeah,
The Wednesday they're available.
okay.
So what would be powerful then, if you wanted to do that, is you contact the associate dean and say, we need to talk about this secondary program, it's not good enough.
We've already had the first conversation, that went really well, I thought, so
And-
yeah, absolutely.
And you need to say, these people need to be in the room, and whoever it is. That's because I don't have that authority.
Yeah, I don't know, as students, we've all pushed that as well, sent
Yes.
letters and
Right.
for the last 4 years, and it's just no change.
But having people in the room who are at various stages, so work at UVic, teach teachers, veteran teachers, just finished teachers, student teachers. They should all be there, because that's how you talk about each perspective in terms of, this is what my experience was, this is what we would like to do, and you can fill out all the course evaluations that you want.
So in one of the things, like just looking at, here's the core competencies, we're talking about communication, thinking, and personal and social, right? Which really isn't that different, but those are the core elements of this new curriculum. And then these big ideas that come with each of the different areas. And so grade 9 is sort of indicative of what's going to, this will be the format for 10, 11, and 12. So it won't really change a whole lot, but some of the big ideas might shift depending on the different subject area. Gee, science has 6. They've got way more big ideas than social studies.
Oh,
Because you're trying
Your
to cram
deeper
absolutely
fingers
everything.
there.
You're trying to cram all of
So-
science
Have you
into
ever
9 and 10.
Yeah, but so just conceptualizing it around big ideas and how new people could actually start to get a handle on what are the big ideas rather than the curriculum document that laid out a million different prescribed learning outcomes, even the language, right? You know, so it's, the language comes from the ministry about prescription, comes from the university about prescription. And I was just saying to Carrie actually before we started, it would be really useful to have some kind of, like an advisory group about teacher education that actually had teachers sitting on it, that could actually inform what new teachers should be doing.
Done,
Can't we just create that?
sure.
And
Well,
then just,
we
and
are-
then give them, right? Like, there, we don't
Just
need the
invite them
university
to
permission
Well, I
for
think it
that.
can come, like now that Carrie's in that big important role, start looking at just an informal kind of advisory group that becomes more formal as people do it.
In
4
your-
hours a day, Kathy.
Let's make a think tank. I always wanted to be on a think tank.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
Well,
Yes.
so
Jordan
far.
Fraser. No, a think tank.
In your opinion, what is preventing it from happening? In my mind, if I was teaching at the university, prospective teachers, and,
5 months.
you know, veteran teachers are coming to me saying, hey, in year 2, 3, 4, 5, would you like to send them in small groups for these periods of time in order to work in the classroom and engage with kids? I would say 100% take this day, you know, these guys go on this rotation day, these guys go on this rotation day. They'll bring it back to my classroom, we'll actually use real data collected from their experience, and we will put that in with our teacher training classes. I don't understand why
You
they
wanna
wouldn't
speak to that?
jump on that.
Well, I think just because you're taking so many different everyone's so different, in those second years, the schedule itself needs to have a time where that student can, as a group, and be directed by someone to say, here's the time to go to a school now.
It needs to be a course in
I
effect,
believe it needs to be a course, yes.
so that it's carved out.
So there's carved out, this is the time I can spend 2 hours here at the school,
That's what it is.
2 or 3
Called
times a week.
volunteering.
But that, what Alana said in her email can tie in there, because then the person at UVic can help be the, conversation starter with what's happening at the school and
Yes.
with the group of teachers, because there's lots of middle school possibilities too that are really powerful, I think. But then it could be a matter of going out and facilitating what's going on at the school, seeing how things are going as a taught course on site, like the seminar is.
Presently, is the teacher training schedule, is it all during the day timetabled classes?
Depends depends on your second teaching area. All the education courses are. A lot of the like geography courses are like a 3-hour night class sometimes, or it's all.
I mean,
over
I
the
don't
place.
know, even if a bit of the scheduling of those classes changed and you put up volunteer opportunities. I mean, if you
Well-
really wanna be a teacher,
I
I
think,
would take those
just to
opportunities.
bracket out your program, because it is more convoluted. If we just look at the post-degree program that we've got, that's definitely possible. Like, they have half days in their schedule throughout the first year, which is most of their program, that they can choose to do these kinds of things if they want to.
And we did field trips and so on. The problem is getting the university people to recognize that work as work, and to reduce the assignments and the readings so that when they're not in classes, it's not seen as time to do.
Well, that's where it's important to talk to each other.
Right.
And not assume that we know what they need. So that's something that we could facilitate. I'm not putting it on you, I'm just saying you have a position of authority that I don't have. So to use that position, and then we can just do whatever. But to say
Yeah.
that that's what's needed.
It's part of my job to figure out what's going to facilitate the collaboration with the schools. That's what
Yeah.
I'm going around.
I would also say that all of my colleagues who went on practicums, for the most part, wanted to go back to those classes and visit them and spend time with them while they were looking for their first employment. And I would say that it was very rare to find those mentor teachers who were open and had the time to facilitate those visits into class. So I think perhaps around this table, we have teachers who are very welcoming and open and supportive of teacher training programs, but even with mentor teachers who are taking on practicum students, we maybe don't have the open and accessible classrooms that would allow for a large group of students to all find a place to go visit and volunteer at. It might end up looking like more work for those teachers.
So what we have now is 2 schools that have been working in a different depth of way with pre-service teachers. And so that would be a starting place, because you're right, not every school is open, and not every teacher in this school is either, right? So, so you have to find pockets where you find them, and Heather will sort out the rest.
And Mount Doug.
And Mount Doug just came this year
Yeah,
for my program.
that's right,
which is good.
that's
David,
right,
just to
yeah.
clarify, were you saying students who'd finished a practicum at one school wanted to continue to observe and help there? Is that what you said?
And
David
like,
drops in for 2 afternoons a week still here.
No, I know, but I was thinking of schools other than Reynolds, 'cause.
yeah, so everyone who's at this point, like starting in January, was hoping to continue dropping into their schools,
Okay.
whether it's to fuel those connections to hopefully get their foot in the door for TOC work, or whether it's just because they love teaching and still want to be in classrooms. There were not a lot of those opportunities being put forth to them.
But it's also another kind of mentoring, that if you're actually working with teachers that want to work with you in a class, it's a very different starting point for new teachers than TOCing even, right? Or, so, you've had some longer term opportunities that are very different from like just one-off popping around all over the city, which is not necessarily the best way to learn how to be a teacher.
Yeah, long term is the best. Just saying.
Just find sick teachers.
It's a good way to learn a lot about teaching stuff quickly.
But I mean, to that end, to support all of this as an anecdote, throughout everything that we've just been through, there was not a moment of hesitation knowing that Jamie was there, knowing that we had had this relationship over 2 years, that he had volunteered in my classroom, knowing that David was still coming in, knowing that I had worked with these guys, they knew our kids and all that, right? So on the back end of it, after everything's done, we have, and what's what Mark's talking about totally, is that we have young teachers, new teachers that we know and we trust and we know have the best have the skill set that mirrors what we're looking for in our classrooms, and that we're treating kids with dignity and respect and encouraging them and to be their best selves. And so it was a huge relief to not even think about it, knowing that these two were there. And so if we needed to convince teachers, I mean, that's it. Right? Like when that unexpected happens and you need someone in your classroom, how wonderful is it to just walk away and be like, they're fun, they get it.
So, yeah, it's sort of another mentoring.
Absolutely. Right. To which some of my colleagues might say, well, we're just training our replacements. But I'm okay with that.
Thank God we have the union to protect us.
Yes.
Well, so yeah, you have your constraints as well
Yes.
with the, whatever regulations.
We just don't
you've
tell
got.
anybody. Honestly, I mean, we've had, I can think of 4 or 5 students who contacted me in second year that were, whom I taught at Claremont, who said, hey, I'm getting into education, do you mind if I come in and sit on some of your classes? And did so, and then, taught a few lessons. And it was all unofficial.
Who would object?
No one would object, particularly because we're taking it on ourselves, right? If we, I would mention that to Bruce or whomever, to say, hey, this is what's happening. I feel like I get the sense that we have a lot more control than you do. And therefore, I think the onus is on us to a certain extent to sort of put ourselves out there and go, hey, we want to train as good a teachers as we can. Because we're not creating as great a learners as we can. And I think that's the real problem here, and that's where I come back to this idea of, okay, who's in the way of having the most engaged learners on the planet right here in BC? And if they're in the way, let's help them not to be in the way. And and again, I mean, I realize you've got a goal here, and it's awesome that we're all meeting and time has come to us, but I mean, we have so many good people around this table. Let's just make this happen. Let's find where the walls are, and let's break those walls down. And if we can help it, I think what you're hearing is we will absolutely help. Because I don't have anybody in my district who's saying, hey, you can't do that. Save for one VP who decided we weren't having student teachers this semester for some reason, which I'm still unclear about.
So I think for
We got
all
your
of
back.
us, what we're trying to do is prepare the best teachers for the best learning environments. Like that's what we're all in it for, in this room anyway. But how that happens differs from, not everybody believes that this is the right way to do it.
They don't have to. I think if we have enough people at each of these 3 schools, then great. I mean, I know who in my school will happily take students, and we'll take them in second year or whatever year it happens to be. And we can certainly communicate with those people and say, listen, this is an option. And we can enable that, and we'll just tell our admin that this is what we're interested in doing. And I don't see anybody standing in the way of that.
There is not a school that I have visited in the last 3 months that hasn't thought that this is a good idea
Yeah.
from the administrators, not one.
Yeah.
Middle schools,
Working
high
together.
schools, independent schools,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
And a lot of them said, hey, this would be a good school for that because, and could articulate what they offered. So I think
Yeah.
the will is there, but it's a lot of organization in terms of making it happen from our end and make sure that it doesn't become a, okay, thanks Heather for organizing all of that for us. But I'm totally on board.
Yeah.
I mean, really, the nitty gritty of what I'm hearing is it really comes down to, is there space in the teacher candidates' schedules so that the opportunity is available? And that space, then, is there support from other faculty members so that they're not overloaded with paperwork that they need to do that would take up that space? That seems like that's the nitty gritty barrier right
And how nice for all of us if students who discern that it isn't for them can decide and have a graceful exit strategy. Because
4 years
that is
before,
the
yeah.
hardest.
Yeah.
You've had that problem?
Once or twice.
So I guess my concern, as we're doing our own thing at university and figuring that out, is, you know, how does this best enable you to support your students? You know, so that, just keep coming back to that, that's really the crux of it. So not saying, okay, so we've got a good plan, could you sort that out for us all? It's about how do we work, what are the things that we can do to support what's going on in the schools, in these kind of, I mean, I hate the word innovative, but, you know, trying out different ways of reaching your students, trying out different ways of doing stuff.
You said you wanted to spend money. So one idea could be with students before they're actually placed in their official practicum, that if students came up with passions or life experience and you were able to share them with whatever schools were interested, and we were able to look at them and say, oh, that would fit, maybe that money would give just small chunks of release time so that we could sit down with that person and coordinate mini units where they could come in and have that experience that would be value added to our classroom, would be value added to our students, and would be value added to them for having that little mini experience before their practicum.
Yeah, we could definitely do that.
That's just
definitely one way
One
that
idea.
money could be used.
We're talking, then I was just saying, Carrie, Heather, it's like using kids, but earlier the idea was brought up about adding a course. Could some of that money be put towards an instructor, namely Alana, to coordinate something? Does that money have to go to us for release time, or could it be used at the university to try to create, to wedge ourselves in a little bit so that we have that course maybe in second year and a fifth year or whatever, so that, and not everyone will take it, or maybe it's a limited enrollment, maybe it's whatever, because I think the part that I'm concerned about the volunteer is that you say, yeah, we have 3 teachers and 30 kids want to come to you.
Yeah.
And then how does then that look? And that's amazing. I mean, maybe that puts pressure on the university to then say, look, we can take 5. You have 30 that want to go. What are you doing to support them? Which would be amazing, but then just, you can't take 30. We can't take,
No.
right? Like that kind of thing. So having Alana or another teacher create a course, and I don't know how much money, like is it 5, 10? We have, yeah, I think we have 50. Is that a number? That's right.
50,000,
Okay.
yeah.
So if we take 10,000, if that's what a course costs, I mean, that's only 20% of what we have. I mean, we still have tons of money otherwise, but it gets us in that door, starting to create something with
What's
a
your
session.
response to that?
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah?
It just takes time from the university though, right?
No, it's additional. Because it's not, what do you mean it takes time?
Well, like, it doesn't have to be approved at like AGMs
Oh.
by a university and things like
Yeah,
that.
you know what, I don't know about that, that's a good point. But,
Well, we have,
Let's start.
yeah, I mean, we have courses that have like generic numbers that you can just slide.
like, I'm thinking here, what we would say is we do it,
So do we.
So do we.
right? Absolutely, like you just use one of those, like we would use an integration studies course or an IDX.
Yeah.
And so just, and do it. So using a pre-existing course.
Yeah.
And to Kathy's point, to not lose track of the fact that we're trying to implement new curriculum. So there is some expectation on the practicing teachers to say, okay, let's take a shot at this. This is what I'm doing, this is what I'm needing some support with.
Well, and some of the things that come up are, you know, just, you know, doing some kind of ecological, environmental kind of, you know, what are the really important things that, that maybe inside, maybe outside. So assessment, that's where it comes up, because that's a really tough one, right? How do we have time to think about that when we're doing it all the time? How do we have time to, like, you know, all your community engagement stuff, which also takes time to organize. How do we, you know, get outside of the school walls, if that's part of what would help you with the curriculum?
So I think that the students that are coming into the schools, that are in that university independent study courses, their assignments and for their course is this. It's how can, going into the classroom and they're learning the curriculum, but they're also saying, how can we improve that curriculum and change it to this big idea?
That's the layer, right?
Well, and they can fit their little passions and mini units into a
That's
big
right,
idea.
because there's
And show
so
how
much
you
freedom
can-
in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the part that they're giving back to the
Does it have
schools
to
to
be
bring.
inside the classroom? Like, you know, there's so much that happens in a relational way that happens outside of the classroom. In some ways, maybe some of the most meaningful stuff happens outside the classroom.
Are you speaking specifically of extracurriculars or college conversation, like?
Well, I mean, it could be extracurricular, you know, I don't know. I
They could
thought that-
take on something around Cops for Cancer.
Could be that, I mean, that's
Yeah.
that's sort of a great way to start
Just getting into
the year off, but it doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily have to be that, but
No.
that's one of the things.
Committing to a club, you know, that kind
Well,
of
I
stuff
think-
that
and I
you were
think
talking
that
about,
you're-
that didn't have time to do.
Helping
You're right,
keep the
it's-
school garden
No,
going.
but I think that is, I mean, just said it, like, you commit, we wouldn't commit to a class, and I think that IGS would, as far as you commit to a space and to people,
Yes.
right?
To
And
the
that,
school.
and to the school.
You have your instructor like. you know,
Right, but even the
you have
school
your
seems
teacher.
institutional, right? Like, you commit to being here and supporting what's going on and finding your niche, and supporting. So the garden, so you're in your classroom, but you're also, I mean, I think that there should be some grounding in a class with a instructional method, but I 100% agree.
Yeah, you
that
can, look at some of the core competencies.
You're gonna get that.
Yeah,
You're gonna get that piece. But what if this, I mean, I flashed into my head, a couple of members of my school coming to visit that group of second-year students and going, hey, this is what our school's got going on this year. You know, that we could use lots of extra adult help in these areas, and it could be at the farm, it could be with watershed restoration. Tomorrow I need another person to go to Horn Lake Caves, because we need 3. And you know, if there had been time to put that out there, because we need somebody for free, because the school system's got no money. And that includes, you know, IGS, and we charge extra,
how much do you guys charge?
$350. Covers the semester,
Covers 2 semesters.
covers 1 semester,
Yeah.
all the trips and instruction over and above the teacher's salary.
But you have your yours is 2 semesters long though.
No,
IGS.
1 semester,
It's only 1 semester long?
2 blocks, 1 semester.
I thought it went from grade 11 to grade 12.
Grade 11 is first semester, grade 12 is second semester.
Oh, so 2 different groups of kids?
Yeah.
Ah. Okay, sorry. I thought it was the same, okay.
Yeah, and then, you know, the big trips are extra, but
Yeah, like the trains.
all the basic stuff, like Horn Lake Caves,
Yeah.
or geology trip.
Well, and some of the other things that might be useful for you are, you know, time to, you know, look at Flex program and look at, you know, take half day for the 4 of you to sit down and think about, so where are we going next year? Or whatever, that is supporting an innovation, or maybe it's not, maybe it's, you know, so, you know, how do we, do assessment differently? Like, you know, what would be supportive of
Yeah,
whatever is,
I'm trying to think of,
as the curriculum, this new curriculum is kind of shaping, how is that being taken up in the school and by whom, and how can we support
Could be
doing it?
shaping. I think to say is shaping is a bit premature.
how it could be shaped.
Yeah.
Possibly, potentially shaping, yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's lots of room for here for people to do the same as they've always done.
Oh,
think that- and that's
yeah,
purposeful,
yeah.
right? So,
Can't wait for that vote in the legislature in
Well,
July
it's
of
not
2016.
purposeful. What?
it is purposeful, I think.
Jan Ellen said that there was gonna be a vote
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
legislature in 2016 that will say, yeah, it's time.
Oh, that this becomes legislation then. But
I can't wait.
But I think it is purposeful, because you don't, I mean, year 2000, they said everyone has to change, and it was fell on its face, so they're saying you don't have to, but what it'll do is allow, you know, like teachers around this table to do stuff that they want to do and have that support, so it's not forcing everyone, but it's definitely allowing.
Which is why showing what it could look like
Is so
becomes
important.
really important,
Absolutely,
because it helps tell the story about
And, yeah, and then
those kids.
if we did have a number of sites, then, like you're talking about that release time, you could actually go with your team to a middle school and see what it's looking like there, or go to Claremont, or vice versa, right? To start to look at what
Yeah, I
our
think so
team
that's-
here is.
That's an important piece, and that's something I've been working a little bit with Trevor McKenzie, who I think needs to start to become part of these conversations when he's out of Spinal. Trying to connect with him more around stuff, because there are these little heroic teachers that are doing awesome things in other places, and I think you've hit the nail on the head for me, is that going to Claremont and spending not an afternoon, but like a week of afternoons would be amazing. And just really begin to have the slightest idea of what IGS is about after a week, as opposed to just coming in and getting a postcard and leaving. Having that cross-school connection, right, bringing Trevor, Mark, Heather, myself, Alex DiMaderos out of Gordon Head, putting us in a room and saying, what are the walls? How do we break them down?
There was a lot of those kind of conversations happening at Ed Camp this week.
Were you able to meet?
That's on Saturday,
I know, I was
There
aware.
was a lot of really powerful conversations across districts about,
Yeah.
how we want to support each other. moving
So
forward.
I think utilizing Aaron on your side and Dave
Absolutely.
on our side, to
We
start,
invited
and
Aaron
Laura
today.
Lancaster, who's doing stuff out of Sioux, right? Like there's definitely this pocket, so I don't know, where that money is, but just getting beyond our fiefdoms, which is, we have the egg carton, right? Like everyone's battling for their own little space here. If we start cross-pollinating, I think that we need to build that network of support, because that's what I'm feeling.
Well, one of the questions I asked last time was who else should be here? So this is, invite who you think should be in this room. It's not closed to anybody who would be interested and helpful in this discussion.
Get VJ here.
So, yeah, so absolutely,
You want
like,
innovation, all right? We invited the Shoreline principal and 2 of our staff to come on rails for all of
Was
this as
that
well.
Nadine?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, she's.
Because in a conversation we had about school culture, it came up that she had seen the video that Aaron had done and was super moved by it and sort of dreamed that sometime could happen, some version of Shoreline. And to hear her explain it was so powerful that I thought, oh my God, what it's becoming is a rolling Pro-D opportunity.
Yes.
As long as there's support from Sherry Bell,
I think
to make sure that those, some combination between Pro-D funds through our own STA, in our case, and BCTF, and the districts, to have people go on those things, because what happens is you're on a train for 5 days. We're going to the UN this year, we'd be on a train for more than 5 days. There's so many great opportunities to sit around, and you got nothing to do because there's no Wi-Fi. And that's
You're not
where,
taking
that's
video.
we have a social science offering now in grade 9 for next year, next September. And it was totally born out of exactly that trip and a science teacher, Melanie Paskin, on that trip. So I feel like it broke my heart, to be perfectly honest, to listen to her describe the challenges that they had and to hear the willingness to carve out 11 days of, her own life. Four school days is how it works out, to be a part of something like that. And across, I think as 3 districts, certainly 2, we're so powerful if we start doing this stuff together and then go, we're just gonna go ahead and do this. Can you please support me? Because why wouldn't you support your teachers or administrators who are that excited about doing bigger things?
What's the timeline for the money?
we're supposed to have it spent by the end of next year.
The end
And
of
then what?
Like
December year or-
16.
December
School year.
16.
That's June 2016.
June, so we have a year and a half of school.
Yeah, yeah.
Year to
And so, one of the things I was thinking as we're talking is, it doesn't always have to be this group that sits down together, it could be like a subset. And the only thing, like, what we sort of have, how we got the money is that they want the stories. So to have somebody who's actually documenting what's going on in, you may wanna do something that's just around the garden and that, school garden kind of thing. So who should be in the room for that? And then if it can be just somebody who actually does a bit of documenting, so we know what some of these things are looking like. But it doesn't, not everybody has to be doing the same thing, I don't think that's the intention at all.
No, but I think it's what we're starting to see and hear is that everyone's coming from the same place, the same space. So whatever it looks like, for IGS and taking a train across, will be the same core values or core competencies, as well, but the core values and the pedagogy is going to be similar in Flex. Doing it, as you say, a bit differently, it might be the same at Esquimalt or Shoreline, doing their thing, but it's all coming from the same kind of core set of values, which I think is what we're trying to spread to our
Well,
young teachers.
and these core competencies,
Yeah.
like they're, you know, pretty,
Right, but, and those are the students are supposed to try to internalize, but even from a teacher, learner space, right? And I think that's the key, and speaking about your science teacher, right, like, for her to go on that trip, learn something, and then want to share that, I think speaks very powerfully to the changing role of us, which is we need to be learners and adaptive to moments, as opposed to, you know, adherence to the textbook and drawing maps and
Right.
coloring maps.
right, which is where this can give you the space to do that if you choose to.
Right, no, that, and the whole curriculum, yeah, the core
And,
competencies, of course.
and the assessment that they're working on a little bit more slowly, that is, they're definitely paying attention. I was saying to Heather that they are working on the Science 10, you know,
When is that
exam.
supposed to, when is the Science 10 draft?
May.
May? What's it say? May
When
what?
when the VCTF put their call out for people
Uh-huh.
to weigh in on this the next 3 years,
Just
the
like,
final
yeah.
3 years, it was January to May.
The team would be working together?
Yeah, so I don't know if, but
Yeah.
is that gonna be
Release that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or whether or not, you know, in that 5-month span, they come up against such difficulties that they can't resolve them, I don't know. But that's certainly what their mandate is.
Yeah.
they have
Is
to,
it-
do that.
Well, and you know,
Or
we're,
if they're gonna lose all credibility if this doesn't
Oh,
go
no, yeah,
pretty darn quick.
And science.
Well,
and that's begun to happen.
Well,
Yeah.
because particularly
But-
9
But we
to
can-
10, you really need to see where they're going with it.
We can't move on 9 socials until we know, because the time frame is totally different.
Yeah.
So we're eating into a good chunk of social studies 10 under the current curriculum. We've actually struck a committee though in our district, we've got some people who are trying to get some money to actually write up the transition from socials 9 to the new socials 9, between the old one and the new one. Specifically just to do that, so that we can start moving down that road and be ready.
And the exam has an impact on that too, does it not?
Yeah,
No, that's
We
not Latin.
not really.
blew
That's
up the
grade
exam
11.
for socials 9, we have a cross-grade
No.
exam.
I think, you're speaking socials 11 though?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not, won't have an impact.
No,
With
that's
the
a totally
10
different group than socials 9-10.
It is, but that, it still comes in, because the only reason, the only justification right now for evaluating our kids in social 9, like we do, is so that they can then be prepared
Yes.
for socials 11 exam, which is only 20%. Which
Which is
whose
also
multiple choice, which is ridiculous, is only 11%. So we're trying to get too worked up about it, because it's really not that big a chunk of their mark. I mean, we would love to get rid of it. What I'm getting tired of is people saying, oh God, well, they'll never be prepared, you know, for the social studies 11 exam
Like,
if
that's
you
an
don't do
important
this
thing.
in grade 9, which is,
It's,
but it's constantly
But it
being
is
referenced
Yeah.
among people
Yeah.
less comfortable about moving on to these new core competencies.
Tell them they'll practice their multiple choice on the Science 10 exam.
Yeah, I mean, I won't speak for science because it's just a brand new animal to me, but I'm certainly beginning to learn about that and seeing that as a larger picture. There's really exciting stuff about to happen. But I agree that there's a bit of a credibility thing, because there are enough people interested in doing this who have seen versions of this a couple of times amount to nothing, that people like me who are really advocating it are having, you know, it's an argument. we
and that's a
continue.
conversation in the ministry meetings I've been in, they recognize that, and they own it. And that's
Good.
partly why they're trying to do so much of engaging you, the youth in the province,
Yeah.
to build and to support, and so that was something that I definitely tried to advocate on behalf of teachers when the meeting was just like, you know, there's a lot of people who have a lot of hope, and you gotta treat it gently, because you don't wanna ruin those people again, because they're ready to do something.
Yeah, I mean, and some of us have just moved on, right?
Yeah.
We're already,
Yeah,
we do it because they tell us we have to
probably
do
all the
it, but
people in this room
why do we, it's
have
just,
just moved on.
it's ridiculous. From a social studies perspective, it's really tough, but, you know, increasingly, I mean, we've moved beyond that, where we're drawing from science now, and now we're drawing from science in an official capacity. And I had a 10-minute conversation with a parent from Germany, wants to make sure a grade 8 kid gets into social science 9. So it's spreading like wildfire from parents who just want us to get on with this. They want it to be in this way. All of that support is there. I think the pockets of resistance are much smaller than we think that they are.
I would say they are, and they tend to be in the buildings, and they tend to be quite loud.
Yeah. So we should go into the next PCTF meeting and have a conversation. Because I bet that would be interesting.
Well,
And that's one of the voices.
Yeah, no, but Hansman on Twitter is always like, no, like when people challenge him on it,
Yeah,
they're like,
no,
he's
I
like,
know.
no, we're doing this is partnership, it's
Yeah.
working,
Yeah.
and Rod,
Awesome.
Alan's like, no one reports that we're doing good things together, because there's nothing to be said about that. Right, it's all the politics, it's all the court
It's not
stuff, but
news.
it's not the building together, which is happening, from what I'm being told through Twitter and through Rod, in an authentic way, right? So,
Well, in a practical way, all of our interdisciplinary trained student teachers are on the TOC list. They're the only ones.
yeah.
What do you mean?
Through the
interest?
IGS?
It's just-
They're getting on the list.
Absolutely. So Spencer's on, Jen on,
Oh, that's good.
and Jen Bonkowski from the year before, and John Gabriel, both on. The other ones aren't on it.
Jamie Burr.
Because there's not an argument to be
How do we
made
get 'em
for
off?
bringing somebody on.
Give them a job.
But at least they're getting TOC time, so, it's even being recognized that we need these kind of people to be able to come in our classrooms so we can move forward, and that's admin support.
Well, I wonder where the district gets, I know that our district is very interested in the Truvic model and knowing who the mentor, through the mentor teachers and the people working with them, who are ones that there's obviously the competition between the districts with going to keep the quote-unquote best.
Sure.
And so there's interest in our district too, so I'm wondering how we leverage that interest in those kinds of student teachers back to the university and say, you want your kids hired, these are the kids we're looking for, change practice.
Yeah.
And so then the university can be like, hey, and I point at you, but you are, what was it, is it Metonymy or Syndon? Which one is she? She's the university, the White House, right? Is that Metonymy? But leveraging it from the employer, right? Maybe that.
I had this really, really interesting story. A colleague of mine went from one assistant superintendent job to another assistant superintendent job. And the first question she asked when she started her second assistant superintendent job was, where are we hiring student teachers from? What university? Where are they coming from? That was her first point of concern. Where are they coming from? Where is the situated teacher education work being done, and so who are we taking in? Who's on our TOC list? Where are they coming from? First question.
Yeah. Right, because it's very important to the districts to have those teachers in that are gonna be engaged and committed and all those kinds of great things, and they have to fill them from somewhere. So I think that might be, as kind of this exploratory talk goes along, thank you, Blavatsky, that we put pressure from Sherry Bell and from, I don't know your superintendent.
Kevin Elder.
Yeah.
Kevin Elder's totally on board.
Yeah,
He's
and I think-
frustrated with the university because he's been on the other side too. He was
The university
representing the
instructor.
superintendents and principals in negotiations.
Oh, okay.
And he's taught at UVic, so he's seen all sides other than, being a politician.
Yeah.
Well, he's a superintendent, so it's the
Yeah.
same thing. But yeah, he would like to see this move forward. That's absolutely what's coming out of his mouth. So he's super supportive.
And I know Pat Duncan,
So,
absolutely,
we
Sherry,
might
absolutely,
wanna
just
ask
much.
them to come to a meeting at some point and just hear this and see how
Well, I don't think
they
they
could
need to hear it
actually
from
be.
us, though. I think, like, whether it's a few of us go to them, because it's gonna be so hard to get them, we just need them to be like, put pressure on UVic, whether
Well,
it's
they
through
came to the
letters or-
showcase,
Yeah,
Pat Cherry did.
real, absolutely, but I don't mean like, I don't feel
Right.
that they need
Yeah.
to sit at this table and have this conversation, because they're already
Okay.
there, we're
Right.
not trying to convince them, we're asking
No,
them to
they're-
take action
yeah.
on things they already believe, so that the process can change,
Right,
so, there's a,
so that's.
the art of the choir.
Yeah. So what are next steps, other than, like, we could be exploring potential of a course, or at least a coordinated that can offer these, and I don't know if it could actually be a formal course, but if it's experiences, like,
Is there another
Sometime.
practicum that you could slip in? No, but like, if it's, when you say course though, I wonder if is practicum separate from course?
And
I feel like you don't even need to put them in a formal course, I think it's a really
Yeah.
good idea to get them involved with, I mean,
it would be
nobody who's
easier
in a
just to
school
hire somebody
thinks
to
that school is
coordinate
just in a
stuff.
classroom.
Oh, I
My
see.
God,
I see.
particularly when we're talking about
Yeah.
our two
Yeah.
schools.
So I think one way that we could do this is to identify a set of experiences that pre-service teachers could have. And Heather would say, I have a great idea for an experience. I think that if 4 or 5 or 6 pre-service students came, sort of under my wing for a little while, that we could go with that, and then Brad might have another one, Mark, you know what I'm saying, is that we could have these, and then we'd have a coordinator who would vet the students and who has an interest in this, who might have an interest in this, and that's how we might end up with our group.
Yeah. And if it started small, other people would probably catch wind of it.
Yeah, I do think it needs to be small and manageable.
Yeah.
You need, I don't know how many experiences in how many different places there could be, but maybe if Doug came to the table, they might have 1 or 2. Claremont might have 1 or 2, we might have 1 or 2, and so you might have.
I think we have more than that.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm
Like I
thinking
just
like
probably think
4
of
for our
this table,
school
we
would
can
be
think of
pretty
3 or 4 at
easy.
this table.
Yeah.
But how that is done, I just would love to see it done in an intentional way, not
Yeah.
just,
Oh, yeah.
okay, like just
Yeah.
trying
But I think
to
that's where the
match it up.
coordinator comes in.
And something mandatory
Meaningfully?
from the UVic though too.
Yeah.
I don't know if we wanna make
I don't-
it
Not mandatory, but something guided, like something that.
Yeah, so I think is that the
You think it's
coordinator?
right?
Should I get credit for it?
Yeah.
Should we get credit for it?
Yeah.
No, but that's what we're saying,
I don't
is
know.
that I did not
I
credit
mean,
the
that,
course.
we could be
course.
working to that, but just do it in a more informal way at the outset.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, any change takes 2 years to do it in a
Right.
formal way. So just to do it, right?
So we do it and just start the process of change while we're doing it.
And certainly the process of change, having students, teacher candidates ask for it. Oh, my friends got this experience in having with TrueVic and I didn't get that experience, I want that. It's really powerful, that goes a long way, because that student feedback is one of the major pieces of feedback they use to, I think, to figure out some of these structural changes.
And I really wanna work with people that aren't doing it because they're getting credit for it. I wanna work with people
Yeah.
who are doing it
I mean,
because
to-
they want to have experience with kids, they wanna get engaged, they wanna share their passions, they wanna work as a team with someone who has experience to share what they have
Right.
and learn from that person.
Yeah,
I don't
I agree.
want
It
people
would
to
be
come who
easier.
have a sense of entitlement or anything and they want to just get a credit from it. I want people who really wanna be teachers and they wanna be teachers because
Like the people in the room.
it's a
And I think that's,
passion.
you just didn't go away until, to just keep showing that you've got a commitment.
Yeah.
And then eventually,
It's huge.
it pays off in all kinds of ways, the kinds of ways we want.
It's already
Then-
happening.
Yeah, and then you have like student teachers who are owning their own learning. You have teachers that are owning that own learning. And then if essentially what we wanna have is, I think, transferring this to students, we want the students to like own their own learning. So if you have that genuine passion going through all the way and the students are around people like that all the time, you see this, they see it modeled, right? You don't have a student teacher coming into school saying, like you said, that's here because they're for credit, but you have student teachers that are here because, they're excited about working with the students, and you have teachers that are here doing things because they're excited about it. Nobody's doing it because,
To
it's
tick a
prescribed
box or
or tick
something,
a box.
yeah.
And the more that students start to see this, the more maybe you start to move away from, okay, here's a bunch of people in my life now that are doing things out of their own volition. And so now maybe I can start to move away from, I'm gonna just do this because I need to get it done. Now I'm gonna start to get involved in things because blah, blah, blah.
If you've chosen to be a great teacher in your second year of university,
You're
That's
gonna
awesome.
welcome opportunities like that.
Totally.
and I also
And
think
those are the kind of teachers we want.
the conversations you and I have had over the years about how hard it is to be a champion teacher from a straight energy perspective, we're never gonna shut down a second-year adult who wants to be a great teacher, who wants to help us maintain the energy that it takes just to do what we do every day.
Right. So
Well, you know,
what we need to, sorry, from you is like, I don't even know what your second year looks like. And I don't
So
even know
the-
if most of your faculty members do.
Yeah, so what is consistent is that there are 3 groups, physical education, music, and art. And they have, those are the only education courses in
Yeah.
the second year.
Yeah.
So those are common courses amongst the 3 of us. So all the PE, we're a cohort and take those PE courses together. The music take it together, the art take it
When you say
together,
courses, how many courses?
a full-time table.
So
But
that's,
they're not
in your
all
second
the
year,
same
it's all PE?
No, sorry, it's not all
courses?
PE, it's
Okay.
PE and, so maybe half,
PE
Oh.
and math.
PE and math for me, PE
Yeah,
and
PE and something
PACS
else or
or,
something.
yeah.
I think we might also want to consider, because for me, I was in the PDPP program, but when I was taking my undergrad English courses, they were to be a teacher. So being able to offer these experiences we're talking about gathering to some of those major teachables, like to the English department at UVic, and say, if you're taking these courses intending to be a teacher, here's some ways for you to get into the school, that might be really valuable. Because if I had done that then, it would have been a great way to kind of direct the rest of my learning through undergrad with some amount of context as to what actually happens in a school.
I think I totally agree, because we do get that experience like with the PE, but like my colleagues that are doing math and socials and English and science, they don't have that experience. They're just taking this same course that you have, that don't really have a context to education.
And the risk is you'll get that degree and then go into the PDPP program and you'll go to a school and then say, oh,
I like English, but I don't like
no.
teaching English.
Yeah, so, you know, one of the things that so much of all the best stuff that happens in a building is relational. And so, whatever it is that there are these experiences that whoever, the pre-service teachers are gonna come, or they're gonna have left that probably building all kinds of great relationships with kids, and they'll have a pretty good idea of whether or not that's something they wanna do as a career.
Hello.
Former teacher, still a teacher.
As one, I have to go,
Yeah.
I have another appointment I have to get to, so.
Thank you, thank you. We will continue this, so we'll try and write up like some actions forward, and we'll try and act on that in the next while and bring back things, and as I say, invite other people if you think they would be interested and you would be interested in having them here. Just, if you've got other ideas, just ship them to us and we'll try and figure this out. I just wanted to say there's an assessment conference in Nanaimo on April the 11th, an alternative assessment. So if anybody's interested in going to that, I can send you information about
David,
this. That's a Saturday, hosted by VIU. Yeah, assessment. And I also wanted to say that David is, he's the manager of this whole project, whatever this project is now, so that's why he's taking
Not with
it
a
so
snappy
seriously.
name like your J. Kira title.
Yeah, it was not snappy.
No.
And the other thing we're trying to do is develop in 2016 a national conversation with people doing this kind of work from across the country to come together and talk about what is, how do we learn to become a teacher in a professional sense. And so if you're interested in that conversation, we can certainly invite you to that as well. That might be
Is that
interesting.
Westcast or?
No, that's just our own thing.
Hashtag in development.
That's the
Like a
hashtag
conference?
in development.
It will look more like a set of conversations with people who have other ideas and questions. So we want to include as many school-based people as possible because we need to be informed by those people.
It's fun and fun, yeah.
What's that? that?
It's fun informing you.
Mhm. Well, I was a teacher too.
I'm thinking
Like
more about,
boys.
more about
6 months
that
out.
panel, which I thought was a fun day, to be able to say what needs to happen for 21st century learning to proceed.
Mhm.
Hear Ralph St. Clair say that TrueVic is the lead of our innovation.
Yeah, as they don't support it in any way at all, so.
But
yeah.
it's on record, it's out there, and I'll remind them for sure.
I'm not bitter.
A little bit.
Okay, should we set another meeting time?
Yes.
Are you okay with doing that? Before your, I know your holidays are.
Is there an email list? Like a.
No, I was thinking that we should somehow create
Oh, yeah.
a space for conversation.
I emailed them to Kathy, but I didn't know what normally
Probably you not
happens.
have access to an email, 'cause that was just weird.
Just write it down for me.
Where do you look at websites, on the phone or?
Maybe, maybe not.
I'll send you it.
Okay, perfect, yeah.
And
Why
we
don't you give me
will
one from high school?
explore
What
some
was
of
it,
these possibilities.
Soccer dude?
I love soccer.
Great ideas, was a great idea.
1992.
Just that coordinator kind of
Hey,
Yeah.
Yolanda?
that's my.
position. Well, I don't know if Alana is
Elementary
interested.
It sounds like from the email that Carrie sent that would be that would fit the bill
Yeah.
for what she's looking for.
Actually, you get one, sorry.
I think we have everybody else's contact information.
So after spring break? Like April, you mean?
Yeah, April sometime. I know after school is hard.
We're in Portland
But I
until
flipped through and it looks really,
that?
We're in Portland until that
looks like
night.
I'm doing it.
You go after.
Do you?
Who is?
David, yeah.
What's that?
Rails to resilience.
Never mind, I'll figure it out.
Rails?
Yeah, we take a train in
So
Portland.
So we wanna do it
calendar.
after the
I'll check
15th?
it all there.
Do we want to do it the next week?
15th is great.
15?
The 15th is good?
Yeah.
I'm not here.
Sorry, of what?
Where are you?
Oh, jeez.
April.
Brody,
So is it just one day?
15, 16, 17.
Where are you at?
What about the,
Uh-huh.
Brody.
Oh.
San Francisco.
Pretty
What?
sure the
What?
baseball
What kind
season
of Brody?
started.
Is it like serious Brody
He's
or?
checking out the
Right.
stadiums
Yeah,
of.
I'm going to a
staff calendar?
photography workshop.
Please?
We'll be
Yes, of
looking at
course.
Facebook for samples.
Should we do it the week after that?
Or the,
Just not on the 23rd.
I'm in Vancouver.
well, Brazos.
Yes, there's,
What
Hullabaloo
about
is
the
that weekend.
20,
The showcase
first
on
or
the 23rd.
22nd?
yeah, that'll work, I think,
Spring
22.
dance, 15th.
Yeah.
What are we at?
Well,
22nd?
no staff meeting on the 14th, right?
No, it's on the 7th.
It's on the 7th.
Yeah, so we could do,
The 14th?
that's the day before you.
Oh, here, I did that.
probably.
Aha.
Would you be packing? You could pack maybe.
Yeah,
Is it the
probably.
23rd?
Oh, we don't have one yet.
What about the 22nd of April?
Earth Day.
Yeah,
That's the grad night.
and it's our grad showcase.
Oh, yeah, the 22nd is
Oh.
the grad
Oh,
show.
I better put that in my calendar.
21st?
6 to 7:30.
First, what's that?
It's a Tuesday, random.
Grad showcase.
First,
Tuesday.
April 21st?
First, same time?
That's our reading with Jan.
Yeah, so we just come back from there.
Or, and
Bring
we never
Jan.
bring her.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Tell her I'll be
Very,
there.
Very good.
21st?
All right,
Jan
she'll
and I are
come
tight.
for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she was, we were having a great time.
Yeah.
The 21st.
Got it.
Hey, actually, when's your meeting?
2:30
Do it here?
Until when?
till
We'll book the room for you if you want to meet with her here.
Yeah, really.
Where?
When's she
Why don't
coming
you
to my
meet-
class?
Oh, that's what I was gonna say.
She said she's coming.
She told me she's coming.
Maybe she's coming the same day.
Maybe, if she's over, what's your rest of her day like?
I don't know.
Well, tell her that she can visit Mark's class. She can come, oh, but we're both in the afternoon, right?